right, AWS Config supports 20 resource types. So with AWS Config, I was thinking about this is an idea that it's configuration monitoring, right? And I was thinking about how complex our configurations have gotten. It used to be you'd have, like I mentioned earlier, one ISO flowchart. That's everything. That's the whole network. Yep. But now it's almost there's urgent behavior, right? And you have different resources that are coming and going in a very ephemeral nature. You have different scripts that some people have written who are monitoring and making changes. And overall, you reach the steady state, but then you want to make sure that you don't have any of these runaway behaviors. And that's where config can really help you. You can monitor your from a big picture, and you can monitor on a per resource type. And so what this is saying in this article, there's new supported entities for config. Here's the 20 right here.
Yeah. I think config monitoring and management is insanely complex. I mean, take a look at the first one, the routing tables itself. So let's say you're an organization. I think we're still giving it scores.
Oh, sorry. That's the previous one?
Yeah, that's the previous one. Okay. So take a look at the routing tables, for example. We have about 38,000 AWS accounts, and with a very, very complex routing scheme across all of those different PCs and all of those different accounts. And these routing can get pretty darn long.
Yes.
And you need to monitor and make sure that there isn't any drift that happens in configurations. Let's say there are some servers that launch a change to the transit gateway. You don't want that unless it's authorized, right? You want to be able to alert when that config changes. You want the version, you want to set config for a particular service, for a particular device, for a particular setup. You want to make sure that the changes that are happening in the configuration are controlled, and you don't have random services and API making those changes. You want to detect them, you want to act on it. So I think having more and more support for detect these kind of configuration changes is incredibly valuable. You want to get alert whenever it happens, and act on it. In most cases, you are going to basically revert. So for any organization that is centrally managed, you want to be able to revert any change that happens, unless it happens via your centralized configuration management system.
Yeah.
So you want to immediately, even if somebody has admin permissions to a local.
So how does it happen if someone, say, ran a script and they ran a script with the wrong environment variable up, and all of a sudden they thought was their test account is now the production account?
I think it's a little more basic than that. Somebody might decide that, hey, this VP that I'm operating in is too restrictive. So because they have admin access to that particular account, they go ahead and open up a port, or they open up, the network to other traffic that's coming in, just to make their lives easier. Like I've seen so many people who, their security groups, they just up 0.0.0/22 or 24 or whatever, and that's a terrible idea. You don't want people to create, like that and override it locally. So at the AWS organization level, you have a configuration you've already set up. Anytime you get to change in config, you can alert and then act on it and say, no, I'm going to write the config back.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because as much as you'd want only one single person or single entity that's managing the configuration, that's just not practical in a large organization. But being able to see these changes and wait, this is a security violation, or a cost overrun that's going to happen if you address this. Like you said earlier about limiting that blast radius, right? You want to have things in place, mechanisms that will eliminate your or contain your blast radius. So if something goes, something's misconfigured, you don't want to find out at the billing cycle. You want to find out right away.
Exactly. And if you look at a set of these services, right, the other mechanism which config is used a lot is version control. You want to make sure that you don't haphazardly update or roll back versions of configuration across all these different systems, whether it be your notebooks, whether it be your data catalog. You want to keep control over all of those versions.
Okay.
And so this config helps you manage all of that. Anytime you see that change, you get an alert and you can go ahead and roll back or manage the versions accordingly. Okay. You want all of these when you want better control over people randomly changing stuff. Config is the service you go to. Make sure that things are not kind of happening very haphazardly.
What percentage of AWS entities do you think are in config?
Right now, look at all the different services and all the different points. I would say just short of 50 is my guess. I haven't done the full math, but I'd say just short of about 50%.
At least given the speed at which they're rolling out new things, that's pretty good.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's pretty good, but still have. I mean, there are a bunch of services that are always playing catch up to the main service deployments.
Yeah. And this is going to be one of them, right?
This is going to be one of them, right? VPC endpoints is the one where the service comes out first, then you come up with the VPC endpoint. You want to roll out the basic services first, and all the other peripheral. Serverless is another example. Like same platform they stamp out across all of these different services. It just takes them time to get those things plugged in. So yeah, I'd say this config always plays catch up, but I think they made good progress.
So then, thinking about this article, in the big, I guess in our scheme, what do we say is our rating for this one?
So I would give this a good 4.5 to 5 because
that's pretty.
It's pretty clear and obvious.
Yeah, and I think also the simplified, because it's just 20 new resources. It tells you exactly what they are. If you're a config user, you say, okay, great. I'm using gateway routing tables. Now I want to bring those into my config, and set that up that you can keep an eye on those.
Great. The traditional way by doing this was that you would have an event where something went down or some configuration was a problem, and then people would be screaming, let's go look at AWS CloudTrail to figure out who accessed this API to make changes to this particular service. And then you'll dig, and then you go back to the person, and then you wouldn't know, what config to bring back, and then it'd be a big exercise. So it's always post facto. You act in real time.
So I mean, that stuff is still good to know, but it's good to know after you've reverted your changes.
Exactly. So this gives you much tighter control.